Balabha Shivaradhari Gopi Jana Balabha Shivaradhari Shivaradhari Yashodanandana Gajajanarandana Yashodanandana Gajajanarandana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Shivaradhari Yashodanandana Gajajanarandana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Jaya Jajana Jaya Jajana Jaya Baladeva Jaya Jajana Jaya Jajana Jaya Baladeva Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya And Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Astapada Sattvatishnakaya Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. And Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Astapada Sattvatishnakaya Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. And then Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari. So we'll continue reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. This is the chapter Stay High Forever. And we're hearing how Srila Prabhupada is taking his group of disciples out to a park to do public chanting. In the park there were hundreds of people milling about. stylish, decadent Greenwich villagers, visitors from other boroughs, tourists from other states and other lands, an, an amalgam of faces, nationalities, ages, and interests. As usual, someone was playing his guitar by the fountain. Boys and girls were sitting together. Some were throwing frisbees, some were playing drums or flutes or other instruments, and some were walking their dogs, talking, watching everything, wandering around. It was a typical day in the village. Prabhupada went to a patch of lawn there, despite a small sign that read, "Keep off the grass." Many people were lounging. He sat down, and one by one his followers sat beside him. He took out his brass hand cymbals and sang the Maha Mantra, and his disciples responded, awkwardly at first, then stronger. It wasn't as bad as they had thought it would be. This is a quotation from Jagannath. It was a marvelous thing, a marvelous experience that Swamiji brought upon me, because it opened me up a great deal, and I overcame a certain shyness, the first time to chant out in the middle of everything. A curious crowd gathered to watch, though no one joined in. Within a few minutes, 2 policemen moved through the crowd. "Who's in charge here?" an officer asked roughly. The boys looked towards Prabhupada. "Didn't you see the sign?" an officer asked. Swamiji furrowed his brow and turned his eyes towards the sign. He got up and walked to the uncomfortably warm pavement and sat down again, and his followers straggled after to sit around him. Prabhupada continued the chanting for half an hour, and the crowd stood listening. A guru in America had never gone onto the streets before and sung the names of God. After kirtan, he asked for a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam and had Hayagriva read aloud from the preface. With clear articulation, Hayagriva read, "Disparity in the human society is due to the basic principle of a godless civilization. There is God, the Almighty One, from whom everything emanates, by whom everything is maintained, and in whom everything is merged to rest." The crowd was still. Afterwards, the Swami and his followers walked back to the storefront, feeling elated and victorious. They had broken the American silence. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll continue reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 27, Text 7. I'm sorry, we can't have the board this morning for you to recite the verse. I'll recite the verse 3 times. Duhitrita shatara shatam pitri matri yashashkari Jilo Darya Gunopeta Oranjanya Prajapate Duhitri Dashotara Shatam Pitri Matri Vashaskari Shilo Darya Gunopeta Oranjanya Prajapate Duhitri Dashotara Shatam Pitri Matri Yashaskari Shilaudarya Gunopeta Pauranjanya Prajapate. A word for word. Duhitri, daughters. Dasha Uttara, 10 more than. Shatam, 100. Pitri, like the father. Matri, and mother. Yashaskari, glorified. Shila, good behavior. Audarya, magnanimity. Guna, good qualities. Upeta, possessed of. Puranjanya, daughters of Puranjana, Prajapate, O Prajapati. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. O Prajapati, King Prachinabarhishat. In this way, King Puranjana also begot 110 daughters. All of these were equally glorified like the father and mother. Their behavior was gentle, and they possessed magnanimity and other good qualities. Purport. Children begotten under the rules and regulations of the scriptures generally become as good as their father and mother, but children born illegitimately mainly become Varna Sankara. The Varna Sankara population is irresponsible to the family, community, and even to themselves. Formerly, the Varna Sankara population was checked by the observation of the reformatory method called Garbhadan Samskar, a child begetting religious ceremony. In this verse, we find that although King Puranjana had begotten so many children, they were not Varna Sankara. All of them were good, well-behaved children, and they have good qualities like their father and mother. Even though we may produce many good children, our desire for sex that is beyond the prescribed method is to be considered sinful. Too much enjoyment of any of the senses, not only sex, results in sinful activities. Therefore, one has to become a Swami or Goswami at the end of his life. One may beget children up to the age of 50, but after 50, one must stop begetting children and should accept the Vanaprastha order. In this way, he must leave home and then become a sannyasi. A sannyasi's title is Swami or Goswami, which means that he completely refrains from sense enjoyment. One should not accept the sannyas order whimsically. He must be fully confident that he can restrain his desires for sense gratification. King Puranjana's family life was of course very happy. As mentioned in these verses, he begot 1,100 sons and 110 daughters. Everyone desires to have more sons than daughters, and since the number of daughters was less than the number of sons, it appears that King Puranjana's family life was very comfortable and pleasing. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We're hearing a wonderful instruction by Narada Muni. Narada Muni is giving these instructions to King Prachinabarhishat, who was a very, very pious king. It's not that King Prachinabarhishat was lacking. He was performing all the prescribed rituals. He was doing his duty. He was very, very pious. However, Narada Muni, as we know, is the topmost transcendentalist. Piety is not enough. So Narada Muni is speaking to King Prachinabarhishat to raise him from the level of piety, being a dutiful person in the material world. He wants to raise him up to the transcendental level. So all of these instructions that Narada Muni is expertly giving in this allegorical story. I mean, I can't even comprehend a little bit the intelligence of Narada Muni, that he can come before King Prachinabarhishat and he speaks this whole allegorical story containing all of these wonderful instructions to actually elevate this king in a way that he can take it. I remember hearing when His Holiness Ramai Swami was here, when we were just beginning this section in the Bhagavatam, and he was speaking how it's very important to be able to speak in a way that people can accept. Yes? So sometimes if someone comes before you and just points out your fault, it's very hard to take. But hearing kind of in the third person about someone else's experience that then relates to yours, sometimes that's a bit easier to accept and absorb it. So Narada Muni, being very expert, he's speaking in this way to King Prachinabarhishat in a way that he can take on these instructions. So we've heard a lot in this pastime of King Puranjana and his infatuation with his wife, and now the begetting of so many children. So in the beginning of this pastime, we hear how King Puranjana has, the allegory is that King Puranjana is the living entity. King Puranjana is the jiva who becomes enamored by the material energy, which in this pastime is the wife. So, and in this pastime, his wife is also described as the intelligent. So we can see this, how this works, that the living entity comes into contact with material energy and develops desire to enjoy the material energy, right? We look around in so many ways, as Prabhupada talks about today, enjoyment of any one of the senses. So we have this material body. It's made up of senses. Those senses want to be, they want to have contact with the sense objects. We want to enjoy the senses. That's what that's their main function, right? The senses are there. They push us to have contact with the sense objects, and therefore we get pleasure for the material body in many different ways. So the intelligence gives us the opportunity to enjoy the senses, right? So we're made up of the senses. We feel some pushing for, oh, I'm hungry, I want to taste something. That's the thing, the tongue, right? Then the intelligence functions in order to fulfill that desire. So, okay, where can I get this taste that I'm looking for, right? Or maybe I can go here or that place or this, or I can. So the intelligence functions so that we can fulfill the desire of the senses. So in this pastime, King Puranjana, being the jiva, the living entity, who's come into contact with material energy, the intelligence is working for him to enjoy the material energy. So this is what's happening in this pastime, and all the variegated ways in which his intelligence is showing him ways to enjoy, we're hearing about here. So Srila Prabhupada speaks in the purport about, so there are many different levels to this pastime, and one of them we have Prabhupada just bringing out in the purport, that begetting children, right? Because we're hearing here how King Puranjana and his wife begot so many children, 1,100 sons, 110 daughters. So many children. And Srila Prabhupada explains that although there were so many children, they were not Varna Sankara. They were wanted children. They were children who were begotten in a proper religious way. We see in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, we remember one of Arjuna's concerns, right, was that in the battle of Kurukshetra, if all the men were killed, what then will happen to the women? They become, if the husbands are killed, then the women, they will become prey to, to irreligious men. And then from that, we have Varna Sankara, have unwanted population. Children who, as Prabhupada explains, Varna Sankara persons are irresponsible to their family, to their community, and even to themselves. So we can see the prevalence of this in society today. We can just see this. As people, as a community, we are very irresponsible to ourselves. So we perform activities that harm the body, harm the mind. We cause pain to other people, irresponsible to the family, and irresponsible in the community. This is a symptom of Varna Sankara, that children have been brought into this world in an irreligious way. Yeah. So what does that mean? Does it mean there's no hope? Fortunately for us, I mean, for many persons who may have been brought up in a more religious way or glories, but for many of us, we were brought up not in that way. We're actually remnants of Varna Sankara. So fortunately for us, we have the opportunity to come to Krishna consciousness regardless of our previous lifestyle, regardless of how we were born, regardless of how we were brought up. So that is our great fortune. This is Gaunitai's mercy, yes, that anybody, regardless of background, regardless of any kind of, regardless of any feature really, we are able to come to Krishna consciousness. But for the good of community, for the good of the whole society, then the best possible way of bringing children into the world is in a religious way. So Prabhupada mentions the Garbhadan Samskar, so the child begetting ceremony, where the parents are consciously praying to the Lord to bring a soul into this world that they can take care of and nurturing Krishna consciousness. So this is very uplifting for the parents, and that personality who then comes into the family is very special. So as aspiring devotees, this is definitely the best way to try to bring children into the world, by following that Garbhadan Samskar. And that way we avoid bringing more Varna Sankara population into the world. So Prabhupada, he also makes the point here that although we may produce many children, desire for sex may be greater than the desire for children, than the desire for having children. So as we read in Bhagavad Gita, we have a temporary body. This body is made up of senses. The senses are pushing us to enjoy them, to have contact with the sense object. And this is nothing to be surprised about. This is just the condition of having a material body. Having a material body means there's material desire. There are senses that are pushing us to be for the fulfillment of the senses. So what is different in an aspiring devotee is how we respond when we feel the desire. It's not that we don't have the desire. In Bhagavad Gita, we have this wonderful verse where Krishna describes that just like the ocean, which is always being filled but remain still. So a person in Krishna consciousness, we can remain steady even though we feel desire. So it's not that desire won't be there. Desire will be there. As long as we have a material body, we will experience material desire and the pushing of the senses to be engaged with the sense objects. It's just a fact of having a material body. So it's nothing to be disturbed about. It's nothing to feel guilty about. It's just the fact that we have a material body, therefore the material body is going to push. But how do we respond to the pushing? This is the difference between an aspiring devotee and someone who has no practice in devotional service. So for an aspiring devotee, when we feel those pushing, what do? How do we respond? We respond with control. We practice self-restraint. We practice self-control. And we practice this by fixing our mind upon Krishna, by fixing our mind upon something higher, by recognizing, okay, oh, I'm being pushed around by my senses at the moment. However, I can bring my consciousness above that, and I don't have to fall victim to the senses that are trying to pull me around in this world. We don't have to become victimized. We have everything we need in Prabhupada's books: the holy name, association with devotees, engagement in devotional service. When we feel those pushings of the senses, we can raise our consciousness above it. And this is the practice of a devotee. It's not that we're expected to be perfect, but we should be committed to that practice. That when we feel the pushings and the urges of the senses, we're able to practice self-restraint and fix our consciousness in a higher position. And then we're safe. And we have this, just like today, we're getting set up here for this beautiful wedding. We have the institution of marriage. We have all of these things that we go through in life. Marriage, having children, we have all of these things. And alongside performing our material duty, we should always be reminding ourselves constantly, what is the goal of life? What is the goal of this life? Because sometimes our material responsibilities can be very, very absorbing. And we don't, just as Narada Muni has approached King Prachinabarhisha, it's not enough just to be pious. He wants to raise King Prachinabarhisha to the transcendental level. So that's what's also our duty. This is why we're hearing these instructions. This is why Srila Prabhupada has given us everything that he has, to raise us up to the transcendental position. Even though we're fulfilling our material obligations and our material duties at the same time. So in order to not forget what is the actual goal in life, because even as Prabhupada explains so many times, you know, even in animal life, there is partnership. There is, even some animals, they exclusively partner for their life, right? They have children, they have, what is the difference in the human form of life? Why is the human form of life special? We're not meant to only perform those activities. We're meant to inquire, what is spirit? Who am I? Who is Krishna? What is my relationship with Krishna? And we're meant to explore that relationship and have that relationship blossom in this life, even while we're performing our material activities. So we can take instruction from Narada Muni in this section on so many different levels, as Prabhupada's describing today in the purport, and it's very important for us to engage in our family life and in sex life in a religious way, that we want to invite, call children into this world in a very, in a way that they are very, very wanted. And then we raise those children with care, trying to give them Krishna consciousness. As much as we're trying to take Krishna consciousness ourselves, we're trying to give that to our children. So we have that. So we have that level that Prabhupada is explaining today. And as Prabhupada describes here, family life and the begetting of children, it should stop at a certain phase in life. Right? This life, we go through so many phases. In the beginning of our life, the best way of spending it, if possible, is in student life, brahmacharya. Right? And we have some solid training in Krishna consciousness. And then we enter into family life. We perform our family duties responsibly, trying to raise our children in Krishna consciousness. And then at a certain phase of life, if, you know, I mean, of course, it doesn't happen for every single person, but in general, then at a certain phase of life, after 50, Prabhupada says one should accept vanaprastha. And so vanaprastha can be with the wife or it can be apart. So we accept vanaprastha. It just means we're retiring from family life, which means no more engagement in sex life. The children should be grown up by that phase. Children are independent, husband and wife together, simply engage themselves in Krishna consciousness. If it's suitable and if both parties are happy with that arrangement, then they can separate and perform their devotional life separately. Not in a case of getting divorced, but just as a case of moving into that next phase of life. And then sannyas. And as Prabhupada makes this point, sannyas should not be accepted whimsically. He must be fully confident that he can restrain his desires for sense gratification. Very, very important. And as we see in our society now, sannyas is restricted to those over 50. They have to have, there are many measures put in place to try to ensure this is happening, that sannyasis should always be able to restrain their desires for sense gratification. So we have this system in life, yes, our varnashram system, and Krishna gives us that system. It's a natural system, and we work through it. And then at the end of life, hopefully we are purified and we can go back to Godhead. But even throughout all of these phases of life, throughout our student life, our married life, retired life, we need to have this meditation. What is the goal? What am I working towards here? Especially in family life, I feel, because in family life we have so many responsibilities, and those responsibilities take a lot of energy, they take a lot of time. So this constant remembrance that, okay, Krishna, I am yours, I am your eternal servant, and I am working to re-establish my relationship with you. At the same time, I'm performing my duties, I'm raising my children, I'm working, I'm engaged in business, I'm doing so many things. But Krishna, I'm yours. Yes, and this family life is yours, just as we hear from Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his song. Yes, Krishna, this house is yours, my children are yours, my everything is yours. Actually, Krishna, this is all yours, and I'm just the caretaker. Yes. So we have a wonderful chance at every stage in life to be meditating on this. What is the goal of my existence? And this is what is so special about the human form of life. Otherwise, all of these other things, they go on in the lives of the hogs and dogs, as Prabhupada says, yeah? Well, all of these other things, they're going on. But what is special about the human form is that we can understand who we are, our relationship with Krishna. So that should always be at the forefront of our meditation alongside our execution of our material duties. So today we have a wedding, and I know it's very busy. I won't speak for a long time this morning. If anyone would like to make some comment or ask a question, please feel free. I'm very fortunate to be hearing from His Holiness Banu Maharaj. It's very hard to follow. Maharaj's class is so weak. Granta Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.